don't you just love Fridays? I don't have to work, woo! But why are you so tired on those weekdays and maybe even the weekend too? Maybe I should stop staying up till 3 in the morning every night. But what if you're still getting those 8 hours of sleep and you're still tired? Did you know that it might be because of your tongue? Hold on, what? That's right, a restricted tongue, or in other words, a tongue that can't really move so well, could be behind a lot of breathing issues, sleeping issues like sleep apnea, and even change the shape of your face. The problem is, not many people even realize that this is happening, and a lot of the research on this is pretty new, but there is some new astounding research on your tongue. So make sure you stick around in this video because I'm gonna go over why your tongue posture matters so much, how you can train your tongue to be better, and also what you can do if you have a restricted tongue. So what is the link between your tongue and your breathing and your sleep? So it comes down to the posture of your tongue, or where your tongue is resting. So ideally, we want our tongue to be touching the roof of our mouth. Not just the tip of our tongue, but also the middle and back part of our tongue. That's the whole point of this restricted tongue and where this tongue can cause some problems. Because some people who have this restricted tongue cannot do that. They simply cannot put their tongue against the roof of their mouth and keep it there at all times. Now, not only do you want your tongue there, you also want your lips closed and your teeth slightly touching. This is what I call perfect mouth posture. Now, let's compare this with imperfect mouth posture, where a lot of people cannot put their tongue against the roof of their mouth, so instead their mouth hangs open. Their tongue is now on the floor of their mouth, their lips are open, their teeth are apart, and their jaw is hanging open. What happens here is a couple things. First is you tend to become a mouth breather, where instead of breathing in and out of your nose, which is what we want, you start breathing in and out of your mouth. Now, mouth breathing has a ton of problems. I'm not gonna get into all of them in this video, but I did make some other videos on it, so check out the description below if you wanna learn more about that. But people who are mouth breathers are more likely to snore. They're more likely to have turbulent breathing when they're sleeping, so this can prevent them from getting into their deeper stages of sleep. And they're not gonna get as much restorative sleep. This is why they can wake up getting way more tired. They're also gonna have less oxygen delivery to their cells. So there's all sorts of problems that come from mouth breathing alone. But on top of this, when your mouth is open and your tongue is restricted, it's more likely to fall back. And it's gonna further cut off your breathing because it's gonna go into your throat. It's gonna be more likely to cause snoring, more likely to cause sleep apnea, and again, lower your oxygen levels. Now, sometimes it's not entirely your fault. You could have something called a tongue tie. A tongue tie is where your attachment from your tongue to the floor of your mouth is really short. Now, everyone has something attaching their tongue to the floor of their mouth. Otherwise, their tongue wouldn't be there. But sometimes that attachment can be really tight and really short. And this is what makes that tongue really restricted, where we can't move it in the directions that we need to. This can make it harder for different speech, can make it harder to read and talk out loud. It can make it harder to breathe because now your tongue is gonna fall back and it can't touch the roof of the mouth. On top of that, it's gonna restrict your jaw development because people who grow up with this proper oral posture where their tongue is touching the roof of their mouth, the roof of the mouth is gonna grow in the shape of that tongue. It's gonna be more inclined to grow forward and grow wide in that U shape. And this is gonna further develop the airway or the breathing tubes, where now that your jaw is developed, there's more room for your air to come into your lungs. But if everything's restricted, if your tongue is not touching the roof of the mouth, then your jaw is gonna stay constricted, it's gonna stay in this vertical, narrow direction, and your airway is not gonna develop. So it's gonna be harder to breathe, and you can also have a much narrower, receded chin, and you can have a much more constricted jaw. But luckily, if you do have a tongue tie, there is a simple surgery that you can get done that basically clips this tongue tie, and it brings more freedom to your tongue, and it can get rid of a lot of these symptoms that you have and improve your sleep and breathing a lot. Now, if you're scared of getting a surgery and say, I don't want anyone to come with some scissors or anything to my tongue, no, first of all, the surgery is very simple and it's improved a lot. And a lot of times people use something called a laser, which basically just lasers that tongue tie and automatically cauterizes that tissue. You'll be numb during it, and the recovery process is very simple. But if you're still against getting a surgery, there are some tongue exercises that you can do that will still help improve your breathing and improve your tongue positioning. Now, regardless whether or not you get the surgery, you still need to do those tongue exercises. So those exercises are always a must. even if you get the surgery. So stick around for the video. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit as well. I want to first talk a little bit more about tongue ties themselves, why you might not have heard of it so much, and how much of a difference it can really make. So this is one study that I found. It said that 78% of infants had posterior tongue ties. Now, this is important because for a long time we didn't know that there were different types of tongue ties. And I'm not going to bore you explaining what the different types of posterior versus anterior tongue ties mean. All you got to really know is that tongue ties are getting more common. Where this attachment from their tongue to the floor of their mouth is getting more and more common, and it doesn't always look the same. So sometimes you need a trained professional to actually evaluate this. Luckily, in the later part of this video, I'm going to go over a simple test to see if you should be worried about your tongue tie. But another problem that can happen is a lip tie, especially in newborns. Now, a lip tie is just like the name sounds, where your attachment from your lip to your gums is again very short. So for example, this image here is showing a lip tie. And if you have a lip tie, it can prevent you from keeping your lips closed and closing your mouth. And again, this all goes to that perfect oral posture I talked about. And this is going to prevent you from being able to breathe through your nose properly. Now, this study in particular was talking about breastfeeding in infants. Basically, what the study found is when these infants had their tongue and their lip ties addressed, when they had these simple surgeries done, the first thing that improved was the breastfeeding. There was a lot less pain during breastfeeding. They were able to latch on a lot better, and also their speech and swallowing developed better versus infants that did not have a tongue tie release, and also their jaws grew a lot better. Their jaws grew a lot more forward and wide. This is another study that is basically showing that when you have a tongue tie, or in other words, ankyloglossia, it restricts maxillary growth. So your maxilla is this top part of your jaw where your upper teeth are. And your maxilla is a lot of times what constricts your mandible, or the bottom part of your jaw. So if your maxilla does not grow, then your mandible will not grow. But at the same time, if your maxilla grows, then your mandible will start to grow to follow it. So if you have a tongue tie and your tongue is not enforcing that maxilla to grow, then your mandible will also not grow. That's exactly what, again, this study was showing, that when people have a tongue tie, they have restricted horizontal and forward direction of their jaw growing. And it also talked about how when you have this restricted jaw growth, your soft palate, or the roof of your mouth, the back part of the roof of the mouth, will start to cut off your breathing. So I drew a little diagram to help explain what the study was talking about. Forgive my drawing, but basically this is someone's side of their face. And imagine this is their mouth, and this is their palate, or the roof of their mouth. This red part here is their soft palate, or the back part of the roof of the mouth. Now, when this jaw does not get the stimulus to grow forward, this soft palate is going to stay back. What people used to think was this soft palate would just grew really big for some people, that it would be a really big soft palate. Actually, it's a normal sized soft palate. It just is pushed further back. And what happens is it starts to cut off the breathing. So this further will prevent someone from breathing as well as they could because their jaw did not grow enough. Now, there are other studies further showing this even more, how your tongue impacts the way that your jaw and your face grow, how it impacts your breathing. So I'm putting some links in the description below where you can learn more about them if you want to explore them some more. But here's a couple more quick studies. This is a study showing that a lot of kids with sleep apnea had undiagnosed tongue ties. So for example, in this study, they took 100 patients who were symptomatic, meaning they had some sleeping issues like sleep apnea. And they ended up getting their tonsils and their adenoids removed. But even after the surgery, many of them still had sleeping issues. When they further examined those people, they found that a lot of them actually had tongue ties along with them. This is another study showing that people who have these tongue ties have higher AHI scores, or a measure of your sleep apnea. And they also had lower oxygen levels. So in other words, people who had these tongue ties had worse sleep apnea, and they also had less oxygen delivery. We talked in the beginning of the video how this oxygen delivery is so important. And I hope you're starting to understand now how important the tongue is for your breathing and for getting enough oxygen. Now, how can you fix it? We talked before about getting a surgery done. If you need to get a surgery, if you're interested in that, the best person to go to is either your dentist, your ear, nose, and throat doctor, or if you're a kid or if you have a kid, your pediatrician. These doctors might not be the ones actually doing the surgery, but they will be able to help guide you to the right person who can do it. But like I said, what's also really important is doing the tongue exercises that come with it. This is a study just showing how important it is to do these tongue exercises even if you do get a tongue tie surgery. So what they found is when people get this tongue tie surgery, about 28% of the patients had their problems fixed. But when they combine it with the tongue exercises, 96% of them had their problems corrected. So what this shows is the surgery alone is not enough. No matter what, you're going to have to do the exercises. So if you're one of the people that wanted to avoid surgery at all costs, these exercises might be able to help you alone. Now I'm going to go over a couple of my favorite exercises in this video, but I did make some other videos going into more detail on other exercises specifically for improving sleep, for improving your posture. So check out the description below if you want to learn more about that. The first and most basic thing, I'm not even going to call this one of the exercises. So this is part 1 of 3, I will say. You're going to want to practice that proper oral posture. So put your tongue against the roof of the mouth. And again, you don't want just the tip of your tongue. Try to put the middle and back part of your tongue against the roof of the mouth. And while your tongue is there, you don't want it to be so forceful like you're pushing it up there. You want it to feel natural. Almost like a suction. It should be like a suction cup holding your tongue against the roof of the mouth. Try to hold this position for like 10 to 15 seconds and then take a break and then repeat it. Do that like 10 times. This is how our tongue posture should be at all times. The next exercises I wanted to talk about, I wrote down. These are my 2 favorite ones. 1 is the tongue snaps and 2 are tongue push-ups. You can do actual push-ups if you want to develop your chest, but now we're just talking about your tongue. So tongue snaps work like this. You put your tongue against the roof of the mouth, again, not just the tip of your tongue, but also the middle and back part of your tongue. And then what you're gonna do is a really wide smile while your tongue is in that position. So it'll look kind of like this. What you'll notice is you start to engage your neck muscles along with your tongue. And then you're gonna drop your jaw until your tongue falls out of that position. And when that tongue falls, it'll create a snapping sound. So it'll look kind of like this. What that does is it not only strengthens your tongue muscles, it also strengthens your neck muscles. Your tongue attaches to both your jaw and your neck. And what this really does is not just improving your breathing and your sleep by strengthening your tongue, it also can improve your posture. Because now that you're strengthening your neck, you can give yourself sort of a natural neck lift, where instead of having that forward head posture, your head will slowly start to tilt back and be more in line with your spine. Now, the last exercise is the tongue push-ups. Now, I said before how ideally when you have your tongue in this proper oral posture, how it shouldn't feel really forceful, how it should be kind of like a suction, and it should be really natural keeping your tongue there. This is really important from an early age because if you keep doing this, slowly it will grow your jaw in that forward U-shaped direction. But what if your jaw is already developed? What if you're already an adult? It's gonna be really hard to grow your jaw much more. But what you can do is still strengthen your tongue. And that's where this exercise is really good. Now what you do is you put your tongue against the roof of the mouth in that same position like we talked about, but instead of it being like a suction and being gentle, you're gonna try to forcefully push that tongue up. Basically imagine like you're trying to push your tongue through the roof of your mouth. And when you do this, try to hold it there. Try to hold it for like even 2 minutes if you can. And then when you're done with those 2 minutes, cut that pressure in half and just hold it up there for another 2 minutes, and then cut that pressure in half, and then hold it again for 2 minutes. And just keep doing that until you feel like you're gently holding your tongue against the roof of the mouth. Now, when you first do this, as your tongue is a little bit weaker, you might not be able to keep it up for 2 minutes. So just keep it up as long as you can. But the initial goal should be for 2 minutes. Now, in terms of how often to do these exercises, the first one, the tongue snaps, you can do probably 20 to 25 reps and do this 2 to 3 times a day. So I like to do this when I'm driving, especially when no one else is in the car with me, otherwise it would be kind of weird. But this is a very simple thing to do, and I can knock out 2 things in one, get to my destination, but also knock out some of these tongue exercises. And same with the tongue push-ups, another great thing to do while you are multitasking. So that way you're not really taking up too much time out of your busy day. You can combine this with something else that you're doing. So maybe think about a time that you can incorporate some of these exercises. Now for the tongue push-ups, you really just need to do 1 set, maybe once a day. But these are just a couple exercises exercises out of a series of exercises. So again, check out the description below where I went over some other tongue exercises to really strengthen your tongue and your neck muscles. Now, a common question I get is, what if I do not have a tongue tie? Do I still need to do these tongue exercises? I would say absolutely yes. It's actually probably even more important for you to do it. Why? Because if you have a severe tongue tie and you do these exercises, it's not going to really do much. You need to fix that tongue tie first to be able to benefit from these exercises. But if you do not have a tongue tie, then by all means, these exercises are gonna help you a ton. And that's true whether you're an adult or a kid. This is a study that was done on people who have moderate sleep apnea. What they did was 30 minutes of exercise for 3 months. So they did 30 minutes of exercise every single day. Now, one of the groups was a control group. So the exercises they didn't really do anything. They were fake exercises. The other group did actual legit tongue exercises to strengthen their tongue. The main thing they found was the group that did the legit exercises, they had much better sleep apnea. So the severity of their sleep apnea went from 22.4 down to 13.7, meaning they were waking up gasping for air 10 less times every single night. They also found that the group that did the exercises had smaller neck circumference, they snored a lot less, and they snored less intensely, and they were also less tired the next day, so they were more awake. The control group, on the other hand, had no changes. Now, how do you know if the tongue exercises are going to be enough, or if you need a tongue tie surgery? Like, what if your tongue tie is so severe, but you can't tell at home? The simplest thing that you can do is something called the 2-finger test. So what you need to do is put your tongue against the roof of the mouth. Again, making sure not just the tip of your tongue, but also the middle and back part of your tongue. And then while your tongue is there, open up as wide as you can without letting your tongue fall. And then see if you can fit 2 fingers overlapped like this into your mouth. So it'll look kind of like this. If you can fit 2 fingers in there pretty comfortably, in my opinion, you do not need a tongue tie surgery. To know for sure, you really have to go to a professional, so like a dentist or a myofunctional therapist or maybe even an ENT, and seeing what they say. But I think from the exercises alone, you will still benefit a ton. If you cannot fit those 2 fingers overlapped while your tongue is in that position, then I think your tongue tie is to the point where you would really benefit from a surgery. Now, some other simple tips that you can start doing at home are: 1, practice nasal breathing. And one way to do this is by taping your mouth shut at night. So when you're going to sleep, to encourage nasal breathing and prevent you from breathing through your mouth, you can literally just take a piece of tape and tape it over your lips. The tape that I like to use is something called 3M micropore paper tape. Literally, it's a medical grade tape. You rip off a piece, put it over your lips, and it'll prevent you from breathing through your mouth. And that will naturally encourage this proper oral posture at the same time. And at the same time, during the day, try to make sure that you keep your mouth closed. Keep those lips closed at all times. So that means eating, chewing with your mouth closed, and when you're resting at your desk or whatever, try to make sure that your mouth is not hanging open. If you feel like there's no way you can properly breathe in and out of your nose, even when you're sleeping or anything like that, I want you to again check out the videos in the description below, because I do talk more about how to improve nasal breathing. And I made a specific video on how anybody can unblock their nose and start breathing regularly in and out of it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below, and I will see you in the next video. Have you ever felt like no matter how much sleep you're getting, you're still not getting enough, or you're just tired throughout the day? There might be something involving your breathing that is preventing you from getting good quality deep sleep. When people talk about sleeping advice, they give a lot of tips on having a dark room or a cool room, or things you can do before bed, like